Hi everyone, so here I am with an 8x8. I usually save the 12x12 for family or personal important events, and then anything else that is still quite special but it's not family, I use 8x8. I try to stick to that anyway. So for this photo I was going to use Maggie Holmes' Gather because I mean just the word gather is so Jason Upton. So let's go to these papers and see which one I want to do. I don't want to do anything too curly.
This is kind of cool. I do that. I like this frame. I like this blessed. But it's okay.
This is perfect, but it's blue and there's nothing in this. Well, actually, but if I want to use black, I don't want to mix them. I think I'm going to go mainly with his shirt because that is, or his jacket, because that's more noticeable than the stripes on my, blue stripes on my shirt. This ticket one, maybe this red one.
I don't know. I'll get that one out. And
His shirt is quite busy, so I can't go too crazy.
so I'm looking for something subtle. What else do we have? This is kind of cool. Oh, no blue.
You know, like this goes with the whole rustic feel. Some of his albums are very, it's got that home vibe to them. And then I have these Project Life cards also from the Gather collection. I like this Write It on Your Heart because awesome songwriter. And then there's the same pattern but it's in black and white, so that works out perfect. And then I pulled out this card for the date in my journaling. However, if I'm already going to use this, I might just trim in here. Pulled out some crepe paper scraps. I didn't bring out any florals because, like I said, I wanted to stick to the whole music vibe. It's quite orange. I think it's the lights in the church they were at, and so I brought this card. I want it for these orange lines here. The simple stories. I am some statements in here that are pretty cool. Then for my alphas, I picked out these canvas alphas, and I have no idea who are these from. I mean, there's a brand right there, but I've never heard of that brand ever. These Dear Lizzie ones in chipboard, and these are grayish, so not quite as black, but neither is this Maggie Holmes black either, so that works out. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this wood grain paper into an 8x8, and I'm going to use this as my background paper. And I showed it off camera, but I made sure to just check to see where the lines are going because it's not just a simple wood grain, but there's some diagonal lines to it. Then I'm going to trim my photo because there's just a bit hanging out, and those are my hairs, my little postpartum hairs. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying my best to remind myself to wear a headband so they wouldn't pop up in every single video that I'm doing. So here I'm going through the Project Life cards, and just they are quite big, especially for an 8x8. So I'm just going to use them as layering pieces. But first I want my photo to stand out a bit from this background and give it more of a rustic look. So I'm just going to splatter on some, not splatter, but just dop. Is dop a word? No. Just put some white acrylic paint on there and just brush roughly. And then I do that first, just a simple strokes. And then I go in with my finger and soften the edges because even though there is a music vibe to it, Jason Upton can be a bit soft. I really thought about the whole night, the whole feels of the night, his music, his personality while designing this page. I'm also using my finger to spread out the white paint and to also dilute that white paint so it's not very stark white but more of a cloudy white, if that makes any sense. And now I decided that I'm going to go with the orange-red ticket. All the other tickets I could have added because of the color, but as far as the text that was on them, there was like numbers on them, and if I would have known, if I would have remembered the specific date, all I remember is that it was in spring, and that's it, and the year, but I don't remember the specific date. If I had, I would have used the numbers. So I'm going to go with this ticket, and it says 1 admission. And I'm going to use that as a shelf, which I will show later what I mean by that, and just figuring out the placement, where to put it, because I don't like it when a word cuts off and then you have no idea what it says. Anyways, cutting a strip of that black gingham, or black checkered, whatever you want to call it, and just gonna not back it up, but use that as my first layer of my shelf, I guess. Taping that, and if you're wondering what adhesive I'm using my Tombow dotted adhesive. I love dotted adhesive. I find it better to layer with dotted adhesive because it doesn't stick as hard as just the straight tape, especially when you want to lift things and tuck things underneath and such. Alright, so here I bring in my Project Life cards, and I'm trimming off the rounded corners. There's nothing else that's rounded except for the tickets. The tickets are rounded, but that's an element, not so much a paper layer or bigger pieces of background layers. All those, I want the corners to match so it can all look identical as far as the corners, if that makes any sense, especially if you're using different kinds of papers from different collections. That is one thing that can have your whole layout look more cohesive if the corners are all rounded or the corners are all straight edged. Trimming off the write it on your heart so that I can have a little bit more space for journaling, because I was going to write more than just a general had a great night with Jason Upton in concert or something. There's a lot of emotion that night, and I wanted to just write little pinpoint the main emotions that I was feeling that night. So I trimmed that card in half because I felt like it needed a little bit more music on the other side as well. Took it in there, and I'm liking it so far. So I'm done with the paper layering, and now I'm going to go on to my title. I love these chipboard thickers. I'm going to be so sad when I run out of the letters that you need to make up words. I wanted to put Fly because that is the title of the song I first heard from him ever. But it wasn't long enough, obviously, to just put on that right side there, because I was just going to make a column, but it didn't look right to me. So I put I Wanna Fly, which is a lyric from that song as well. That really works out. I like that. Journaling here, I think I put finally see Jason Upton in concert. I journal about the setting where he was at. I think that made a huge difference than seeing him in a stadium or a mega church. A lot of my friends who have gone to go see him are disappointed, but then they always go see him in that big kind of setting. So if you're gonna see Jason Upton, try to get him when it's more private. Bringing out all the ephemera finally, and I love these little hearts that I pre-cut from scrap pieces of paper from the Simple Stories I Am. And I usually work in 3s or 5s or 7 odd numbers, but for this, since it's just me and him, I'm going to use couples. So 2 hearts, 2 stars. What else do I bring in? Just this little bit, this little flag here to add in another pattern, I guess. But it's just such a tiny bit that you don't need to add so much of it elsewhere. And with all that explaining, I end up taking the other star. I guess I just decided to stick with the couple hearts and then do a little cluster and take the star off because there was no embellishing underneath that shelf, so I figured put all the embellishing on top of the shelf and just keep it there. Gosh. Okay, gluing all that down. And I want to bring in some yellow because there is a little bit of yellow in the picture, yellow tones. And that says love, love. Bringing in some tiny word stickers because this pack in particular is the one that has a whole bunch of positive sentiments like chase your dreams, that sort of type of thing. And you know, I don't think that these are in stores anymore. I bought these 3 years ago, but I haven't seen them lately. Alright, bring in some of my homemade enamel dots, and that's not a black, that's like a charcoal black. And again, I'm thinking 3s, but the third one doesn't work out. There's just no embellishing down there, it just sticks out, so working just 2s, just a pair. Cover up my photo, and I wanted to add just a little bit more splatters to the bottom So simple, so easy. I think I did this like in 30 minutes. I love it. Look at that. Look at that splatter. I used a tiny, tiny brush to have tiny, tiny splatters. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.